A very good afternoon. It is 1 p.m. here in Kenya's capital, Nairobi, and you are just in time for the ambassador where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I am your ambassador, Susan Nganga. Top first story. Nigeria's former president Muhammad Buhari has been laid to rest in a Muslim-led ceremony attended by President Bola Tinubu. The late Buhari was yesterday accorded a state standoff in his Daura residence in Katsina State. The late Buhari passed on in London on Sunday in a hospital while receiving treatment.
Thank you all Nigerians, and I'm appealing for all Nigerians to forgive Baba, whoever is having any grief for him.
Former Nigerian President Muhammad Buhari has now taken his place in living memory as Nigeria's seventh head of state to depart the world. Nigeria's President Bola Tinubu led a delegation of state officials plus other dignitaries pay last respect to the late Buhari as he was accorded a state burial in his residence in Daura in Katsina State. The late Buhari died on Sunday in a hospital in London where he was receiving treatment after a long illness. His departure from the earth plunged Nigeria into a national mourning. The federal government of Nigeria announcing a one-week mourning period and flags flown half-mast in his honor. Thousands of mourners stand up for the Islamic customs-led ritual led by the chief imam. Buhari, born in 1942, first led Nigeria through the military in 1983 to 1985. Again, he democratically ruled the West African nation by civilian rule in 2015 to 2023. He is remembered for his austerity measures, anti-corruption crusades, as well as infrastructural development during his tenure.
If he had died about 3 years ago, I think it would have been better. Dying now, I don't see anything good in it. If he had died about 3 years ago, maybe Osinbajo would have taken over it, and then it would have been a good choice for the country.
There were a lot of hardship, and so the expectation people had in mind before his coming into office was dashed. The corruption that people thought he was going to fight with, it was not like that. In fact, people saw more corruption during his tenure than they thought would have happened in any other administration.
I remember those years he was crying that he wanted to rule Nigeria. The second time, probably there were things he thought he needed to correct, and God gave him that second chance. He came, he ruled us for 8 years, and today is no more. So for me, it's life well spent, and we ask that God repose his soul.
Victor Udin.
In GBS TV, we say rest in peace, President. South Africa's G20 presidency representation wants to find new ways to lessen debt burdens and provide better financing for developing nations. Higher borrowing costs continue to deter investment and choke public spending on health, education, and infrastructure. The goal of the meeting is also to look at the cost of debt, according to Russia's Kasim, the deputy governor of the South African Reserve Bank. Developing nations argue that the current financial system is one of the reasons for persisting inequalities. African countries hope reforms could help achieve their sustainable development goals.
Our presidency places a very strong emphasis on strengthening the role of the G20 in delivering concrete solutions, fostering a more stable and effective and resilient international financial architecture, enhancing debt sustainability, addressing liquidity challenges, as well as strengthening multilateral development banks and ensuring financing for development.
One of the things we want to bring to light in this meeting is really kind of not only look at the symptoms of debt, but the causes of debt, and to provide more runway that our predecessors have done in taking the debt issues further.
This global financial architecture is the one behind the current debt crisis that we find ourselves in, the poverty that the developing world finds itself in, and much of the economic challenges that haunt the rest of the global South.
Moving forward, An initiative by the United Nations Mission in South Sudan is helping to strengthen the judicial system in areas where formal justice has been absent for far too long. Liet Nom is one of the many locations across South Sudan where formal justice has been absent for far too long. For more than 5 years, there has been no judge or prosecutor with knowledge of statutory law present in the remote area of Warrap State, leaving residents reliant on customary courts and military detention processes to hold perpetrators of crimes accountable. In a quiet corner of Warrap State, South Sudan, justice is finally making a long-awaited return. For over 5 years, the people of Liet Nom have lived without a judge or prosecutor. In the absence of a formal justice system, residents had to rely on customary courts or even military detention to resolve disputes and punish crimes, often with serious consequences.
Lack of judges also is a problem. Now in across Gorial, Warrap State, there are 2 counties there is no judge. One is Gorial East we are in now. Another one is Tony East. There are no judge. And there are no prosecutor. Because of lack of judges and lack of prosecutor, lack of accommodation, there are no office. There are not office, there is no building, there are no all this. So a lot of challenges we can face it in the area of the prosecutors.
When the United Nations Mission in South Sudan sent its rule of law team to review outstanding cases, they uncovered disturbing patterns. People jailed without knowing why, misidentified suspects, and incorrect sentences.
I really don't know my offense. I don't know my crime. I was taken from the courtside and put in a container, and suddenly I ended up in a prison.
But change came quickly. Working with the Kuajok High Court, the mission team helped secure the immediate release of at least 40 detainees, many of whom had been held for months or even years without trial. Meanwhile, local customary courts, long under-resourced and holding hearings under trees, welcomed the collaboration.
We have many challenges, such as the fact that we don't have office space. Especially with the rainy season coming up, we lack appropriate infrastructure for these processes.
The arrival of a judge and public prosecutor was embraced.
I was positively surprised by the way that the second grade magistrate was received in Liet Nom, especially by the customary courts, because in some contexts we see that there is a bit of a friction between customary courts and county courts, where the customary courts sometimes feel that the statutory courts are overstepping and taking away their cases and undermining their importance. But here we saw that the judge got a very positive reception.
By the end of the week, the overcrowded prison in Liet Nom was nearly empty. Just 9 inmates remained. For those released, it was more than freedom. It was a fresh start. The initiative by the UN mission, it's about more than reviewing cases. It's about restoring dignity, rebuilding trust, and giving people their lives back. Susan Nganga, GBS News, South Sudan. As summer reaches its peak, so does the excitement around global travel. And now, one of the industry's most respected awards has revealed where travelers most want to be. The results of the 2025 Telegraph Travel Awards are in, with more than 20,000 readers casting their votes. And topping the list for an astonishing 7th year in a row is a city known for its breathtaking beauty, vibrant culture, and unforgettable experience. Here's more on the city that continues to rapture the hearts of the travelers worldwide.
The results of the 2025 Telegraph Travel Awards are in. And once again, Cape Town takes the crown as the world's best city. For the 7th year running, more than 20,000 readers of the Telegraph voted for the South African city, ahead of Sevilla and Sydney, solidifying its place at the top of global travel lists. Cape Town's appeal is undeniable, with the iconic Table Mountain, the lively Victorian Alfred waterfront, and nearby colonies and vineyards. It offers a perfect mix of natural beauty and cultural richness. Its unique architecture and dramatic coastline only add to the city's unforgettable charm. Tourism numbers reflect this growing love. And in 2024, Cape Town's airport saw a record of 10.4 million passengers. From the Telegraph to Time Out, experts and travelers alike agree that Cape Town isn't just a destination, it's the world's favorite city. Elvin Muyodi, GBS News.
Elvin's story brings us to a very fast break here at The Ambassador. We'll be right back with even more as we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics.
So today's topic is Rising Stars, young people who create, influence and inspire. So
on an honest note, creating is hard work, and there are people who I see their work and they're constantly pushing themselves.
Okay.
Like wanajipush, kujipush, like they're putting creativity up top over there.
I think no one also prepares you for the fact that the better you become.
The networking is also very good. You see, there are people who have passion for, you know, videography, creating videos, editing. There are people passionate about that. If you are someone who talks and you meet people and you love people, you'll definitely meet someone who's just waiting to shoot you.
But also in terms of what I put out, it goes back to what are your values? What are your values? What are your beliefs? So as much as this is trending, yes, that is trending. Does it align with your values? Does it align with your beliefs?
You can be a star without the star position. Si lazima ukue hapo mbele ya watu. Si lazima wewe ndo ukue star, ndo ukue star. Hata ukiwa hapa chini, wewe bado ni star. And as she has said, discipline is a big thing.
remove my skin and I won't cry. But you might. What am I? Are you still practicing art ukifanya your engineering? Umezimix ama umeenda tu fully on art? Sasa najua hebu kwanza tutaje because najua huwezi taja wote. Just some of the people some of the celebs wenye umeweza ku reveal your art to them.
J Kroba bibi yake. Hiyo siku walifurahia mbaya. Na mimi nilikuwa emotional mbaya sana.
Lilia.
Go and check that video guys. Nililia mbaya.
I was seeing kuna place ulikuwa unasema like BN ndo alikusaidia sana in building your career. Unaweza tuambie hiyo moment when ilikuanga?
We
Hello, my name is Nyabio. I'm from Mahanim. Call this school a good school because the second my mom saw it, she saw it was Christian-based. And when I see Christian-based, that's what the character my mother wants for me. And I like the sports that we play for PE. Like sometimes we play table tennis, we can play football, we match, and on Fridays we have games. And we verse the teachers in football. And this is why I think the school is the best school your children can go to.
Everywhere, GBS.
Welcome back to the bulletin. Now we shift the focus to the Middle East, where nearly 900 Palestinians have been killed in Gaza in recent weeks while trying to access food, with over 600 deaths occurring near private aid sites run by the controversially backed Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. According to the United Nations Human Rights Office, the organization Aid Hubs, which began operating independently of the United Nations on May 27, have been linked to a sharp rise in violence, including the latest deadly incident on July 14 in Rafah, where Israeli forces allegedly shelled and opened fire on civilians seeking food, killing 2 and injuring at least 9 UN agencies, including United Nations Relief and Work Agency, report that a near total blockade since March has halted humanitarian aid, with 6,000 trucks full of life-saving supplies stalled in Egypt and Jordan as severe child malnutrition spreads. Survivors, including starving children, describe being shot at a route of food centers. Meanwhile, in the occupied West Bank, including East Jerusalem, Palestinians continue to face violence, home demolition, and forced displacement under Israel's Operation Iron Wall. The office warns that the resulting democratic shifts could amount to war crimes and ethnic cleansing amid what UNRWA calls the worst population displacement since 1967.
As of the 13th of July, we have recorded 875 people killed in Gaza while trying to get food. 674 of them were killed in the vicinity of GHF sites. 875 people killed while trying to get food. 674 of them killed in the vicinity of the GHF sites, and the remaining 201 killed on the routes of aid convoys or near aid convoys. These aid convoys can be by the UN or other humanitarian organizations, but as you know, there are very few of them in the Gaza Strip, unfortunately.
We have screened over 240,000 children against malnutrition. 10% of those children screened, or 1 in 10, have been diagnosed with malnutrition.
We should recall that international law is very clear about this in terms of the obligations of the occupying power. Bringing about permanent demographic change inside the occupied territory may amount to a war crime and is tantamount to ethnic cleansing.
Moving forward, the United Nations Secretary General is deeply concerned about ongoing violence in Sueda, southern Syria, which has caused dozens of casualties, including civilians. UN spokesperson Stephanie Dujarric said the Secretary General condemns arbitrary killings, sectarian incitement, and looting, urging local authorities to de-escalate tension, protect civilians, and hold those responsible accountable. He also raised concerns over Israeli strikes in Syria, calling for respect of the country's sovereignty. The Secretary General stressed the need for political transition under Security Council Resolution 2254. Humanitarian efforts remain suspended as basic services and access are disrupted, but the UN is preparing to respond when possible.
On the Syrian front, I can tell you that the Secretary General is deeply concerned over the continued violence that we have seen in the Druze majority area in Sueda Governorate in southern Syria, which has resulted in dozens of casualties, including among civilians. He is disturbed by reports of arbitrarily killings of civilians, sectarian incitement, and the looting of private property. He condemns all violence against civilians, especially acts that risk inflaming sectarian tensions. The Secretary General urges the interim authorities and local leaders to immediately de-escalate and to protect civilians, to restore calm, and of course to prevent any further incitement to violence. He further urges the interim authorities to transparently and openly investigate and hold to account those responsible for what we have seen. The Secretary General is also concerned by Israel's airstrikes on Syrian territory and calls on Israel to refrain from violations of Syria's independence, its sovereignty, and its territorial integrity. The Secretary General underscores it is imperative to support a credible, orderly, and inclusive political transition in Syria in line with the key principles of Security Council Resolution 2254. Our humanitarian partners in Sueda report that medical services are overstretched and that markets and basic services such as electricity, water, education have been disrupted. UN aid operations are still suspended in the impacted areas as movements along the main roads are disrupted, but we're mobilizing to be able to respond once again as the situation allows it.
Moving forward to the Russia-Ukraine war, at least 139 civilians have been killed and 791 injured in Ukraine so far this month amid intense missile and drone strikes by Russian forces. According to the UN Human Rights Office speaking in Geneva, spokesperson Liz detailed a surge in attacks, including a record 728 drones launched on July 9 and a major overnight assault on July 12 involving 597 Shahed drones and 26 missiles, causing widespread damage far from the front lines. June already marked the deadliest month in 3 years, with 232 killed and 1,343 injured. She emphasized the severe physical and psychological toll on civilians, especially children, the elderly, and the people with disabilities, forced to shelter for hours in metro station, basements, and corridors. She warned that explosive weapons used in populated areas likely have indiscriminate effects, raising serious legal concerns. UN Human Rights Chief Volker is calling for an immediate ceasefire, urging both sides to protect civilians, to stop torture and ill treatment of prisoners, to return deported children, and commit to peace talks grounded in international law. Recent interviews with released Ukrainian prisoners of war confirm widespread and systematic torture, including beatings, electric shocks, and sexual violence. The United Nations also continues to monitor the treatment of Russian prisoners of war held by Ukraine, pressing for credible investigation into abuse allegations.
According to our latest information, so far this month, at least 139 civilians have reportedly been killed and 791 injured in Ukraine, amid intense and successive waves of missile and drone strikes launched by the Russian Federation. In an overnight attack on the 12th of July, Russian armed forces reportedly deployed 597 Shahed loitering munitions and decoy drones and 26 missiles. 2 civilians were killed and 41 reportedly injured. Damage to civilian infrastructure was reported across several regions, including Chernivtsi, Lviv, Cherkasy, Volyn, and Kirovrad, far away from the front lines. On the 9th of July alone, Russian armed forces launched a record number of long-range drones against Ukraine, 728. July has brought no respite for civilians in Ukraine after June, which, according to our monitoring, saw the highest monthly number of civilian deaths and injuries in 3 years, in fact, since May 2022. There were 232 people killed and 1,343 injured. The High Commissioner also highlights that it is vital that any negotiations focus on a coordinated push as immediate steps to end attacks that affect civilians, to protect the rights of people in occupied territory, return forcibly transferred or deported children, establish humanitarian corridors across the line of control, and end the torture and ill treatment of prisoners of war and other detainees. He urges the Russian Federation and Ukraine to commit to a full exchange of prisoners of war. Resolving the fate of civilian detainees also needs to remain high on the agenda.
Now we shift the focus to the United States, where U.S. President spoke to reporters on Tuesday after agreeing to one deal, this time with Indonesia, that will see the country's goods hit with a 19% tariffs, down from 32% that Trump had said the country will face from August 1st. U.S. goods will be able to enter Indonesia free from all duties. Trump said Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent and Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick were now keen to land more deals.
$92 billion, but it's going to be closer to $100 billion is going to be invested by the biggest financial people in the world. So we had everybody there from Larry Fink to everybody else you can imagine.
President Donald Trump has said that letters will soon be going out to many smaller countries, which will face a rate of a little over 10%. It's drawn up of a list of U.S. imports worth about $84 billion that could be targeted.
So we made a deal with Indonesia. I spoke to their really great president, very popular, very strong, smart, and we made the deal. We have full access to Indonesia, everything. As you know, Indonesia is very strong on copper. But we have full access to everything. We will pay no tariffs. So they are giving us access into Indonesia, which we never had. That's probably the biggest part of the deal. And the other part is they are going to pay 19%, and we are going to pay nothing. I think it's a good deal for both parties. But we will have full access into Indonesia.
That includes Boeing jets, bourbon whiskey, and cars. The list was sent to member states and seen by the press on Tuesday. It predates Trump's weekend move to ramp up pressure on the bloc instead of being a response to his earlier duties on cars and car parts.
What's happening, as you know, is the European Union, if you look, mostly European Union stuff, but let's put it in the form of NATO. It's very similar. But NATO is going to pay us back for everything. In some cases, we're going to be paid back by countries of the European Union directly. We're always getting our money back in full. So we're not going to have any more investment to make. We're getting our money back in full. And if we can make a deal, that'd be great. We're saving 5,000 or 6,000 soldiers a week. They're Russian and they're Ukrainian soldiers. They're not American soldiers. And we won't have boots on the ground. But it's a shame. 5,000. Last week they say 7,100 soldiers, both Russian and Ukraine, were killed.
Like other places, the EU has until August 1st to negotiate a deal.
We have always been very clear that we prefer a negotiated solution. This remains the case, and we will use the time that we have now till the 1st of August. Since the very beginning, we have worked and now are ready to respond with countermeasures. We've prepared for this, and we can respond with countermeasures if necessary.
European officials say the 30% trade will end normal trade between two of the world's biggest markets.
Caribbean countries, African countries. You have a huge amount of countries that are small, and the president's just going to deal with them sort of the way he thinks is the right way to deal with them.
We'll probably set one tariff for all of them. Over 10%, yeah.
15, 20.
We don't do a lot of business, but we do, it's still significant. Israel's going to be fine. We had a great victory with Israel. That was a great, great victory. What we did with the B-2 bombers and all of that. And I never thought of it, but so many people are thanking me. They say no president had the guts to do it because, this has been going on for 25 years. In fact, when the pilots came to the Oval Office, they said, "Sir, we and our predecessors have been working on this attack for 25 years."
Davis Karani for GBS News.
Thank you, Davis Karani, for that stellar report. And that's all for today at The Ambassador. Thank you for joining us as we cover the latest developments. We'll continue to bring you updates on these stories and more as they unfold. Remember, this is The Ambassador, where we debunk global diplomacy and geopolitics. I have been your ambassador, Susan Nganga. Have a good afternoon.
Everywhere, GBS.